Welcome to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And thanks for joining us. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Truth for Our Time as we help you when the headlines hit home. We know that if God expects you to live it, He's directed you how to do it somewhere in His Word. So every week we bring you issues that are happening that are impacting you, your family, and then we try and give you a little grounding as well. The media can stir you up and they create strife, but they seldom give you solution. And so we try and help you through those things, give you ideas and ways that these issues are impacting you and what you can do to correct it, fix it, get your family back on track. And it's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for taking time out to listen with us. We want to thank our sponsors. We always start out right away by thanking those who make it possible. So one in the booth is Ryan behind the glass, and he does such a great job each week. Really appreciated, Ryan, the coal miner song last week. That was a little fun. Thank you very much for that. And then he always makes things look good on the screen, even when we throw a curve at him. Our sponsor, Christians for America, ChristiansForAmerica.com, the Crave Revival, Christians reviving American values every day. We appreciate so much Don Swarthout and his wife and what they do across America, empowering men and women to speak truth and changing lives. Danny Van Gundy in Ohio, changing lives. The arena event that we did years back, going into counties where was the highest prescription drug abuse or addiction in America, one of the 10th highest counties, and they went right in, football arena, and did an event there, and we appreciate that, and we just appreciate what they're doing and what they make possible, and they're partnering with us at ChristiansForAmerica.com. You can go to that website and look through there, and if you want to help with this show, you can always do it through that website as well. It's a 501c3. Also, we thank Webcast One Live Studios, where we do come to you from. We do the show from Webcast One Live Studios. So we thank Mac for sharing the air with us. And then if you're listening, you may be joining in with us at 10 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Glad to have you. You can watch live at webcastonelive.com. Webcastonelive.com. You can join in the conversation. 515-244-0077. If you're listening on air, we thank 99.3 FM for airing the show on Sundays at noon. And thanks to you who are listening and sending back your positive feedback. Thank you so much. I appreciate the comments and just the fact that we can make a difference. If we can offer help. It's a busy, crazy world, lots of schedules and deadlines to meet. And if I can do the research, find the information and make it accessible for you so that you can still fix things with your family, then so be it. And I'm thrilled to do it. Thank you for listening and taking time to correct and to care for your community and your family. Joining me today is Dr. Don Racheter. He is the president of the Public Interest Institute. But I knew him years ago when I got called upon to run for an office and was a little intimidated by that, but nobody else was going to step forward, and I couldn't leave it unanswered. The man who had been there for 14 years, 7 elections, and really only 2 candidates in that time. So I felt like I had to, and out of my naivete, Dr. Racheter, I thought, well, I didn't know who he was. I could make a difference, and no one would know who I was. That's how I just thought, nobody knows who the legislators are. I could do this, and I could have impact, and I wouldn't have to be out front.
So one problem with that was that he was the minority leader, wasn't he? Or the majority leader?
He was the minority leader that everyone expected to become the Speaker of the House. They fully expected, even those who asked me to run said, you will not get any contributions from even our friends.
Yes.
Because they don't want to tick off the next Speaker of the House.
Right.
And we didn't.
No.
We got some. I was pleased and honored by those who did come alongside. In the end, we had the record at that time for the most money spent on a rural house race in Iowa for quite some time because he raised so much money. As you know, he's supposed to raise money to go to the other candidates in his party to take over that speakership.
He had to run TV commercials in a house race.
The last 3 weeks. Yes. That's common now, but it wasn't back then.
No.
Cost him, I've heard the figures, I don't know, but he spent every dime, is what I'm told, on his seat.
Yes, and then he just squeaked back in over a challenge from a newcomer, a nobody, quote unquote.
Yeah, no-name housewife.
And then he got deposed.
because his team was so disgusted. He didn't help any of them get reelected. He gave them no money, and therefore not only those who were able to squeak back in themselves, they didn't take majority. He didn't get speaker, and so they voted him out of leadership. And it ended up okay for me. Mission accomplished. I got to stay home with my kids.
Yes.
Right? But in the process, we met so many wonderful people. Door knocking, just the parades, the festivals, getting to know communities throughout Iowa was just such a great, great process for my kids. My son, was at that awkward 14-year-old age. And he said, at the beginning of the year, I'm so uncomfortable talking to people. By the end of the year, he said, I think I could talk to anybody. And he said, it irritates me, these folks who tell you what they think, but they don't know why.
Yeah.
They can tell you what they're going to do, how they're going to vote, but they don't know why.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why Public Interest Institute exists, to arm people with the knowledge that they need to be reasonable and informed participants in the public sphere. We have over 20 years worth of publications on topic after topic after topic. It's all available free of charge at www.limitedgovernment.org.
Very good. Limitedgovernment.org. And now you can see why I was so fond of Dr. Don Racheter. At that time was a professor at, can we say the name of the school?
Oh, sure.
Central College.
Yeah, was there for 30 years.
And teaching government. And it was refreshing to know that we had a government teacher somewhere in America who wasn't left-leaning.
There's actually 8 out of about 115 here in the state of Iowa that identify as Republicans.
You know that.
Yes, I know them all.
Very good. Well, I asked Dr. Racheter to join us today because he is with this think tank who is very well respected nationally. I have in my hand the State Policy Network brochure, and they, when I have seen them at events, speak very well. Usually have some of your Public Interest Institute pamphlets on their table, and appreciate the white papers and the policy papers that you all put out on issues. So thank you for the work that you do, not just here in Iowa, but across the nation. The reason I asked Doc to come on is we're continuing the discussion. And I have to tell you, it's Christmas. It's the Christmas season. And if you know me very well, I love Christmas. And I would like to dedicate all these shows about the fascinating stories behind Christmas, the things we can do to preserve Christmas in our homes. And yet, just like so many other areas, government keeps creeping in, and we have to deal with what's at hand. We have to tackle the issues that are at hand and are harming our families. We all want that perfect special Christmas, right? It's hard to have that if you can't afford a roof over your head, if you're struggling to meet the rent, if you're dealing with such regulations that government has come into every area of your life. And this is where we're at. We're continuing the discussion. Last week we were talking about coal mines. We were talking about the technical media arena, and we were talking with we were talking with Rob Porter, who is the owner and president of a coal sales company. That industry is waning. Coal mines are they are declaring bankruptcy. He said that they had lost 8,000 jobs already in the last 2 years, and they were expected to lose 20,000 more. And out of Alabama, the National Committee man and the CEO of Reynolds Technical Associates said that they had come after his industry, costing him a great deal of his income, profit. And so it's killing jobs in America. So we're continuing the discussion, and I thank you for coming on and joining with me. And I want to say it again before we go to break. These regulations are costing the average household $14,000 a year.
$1.9 trillion in total. Most of it unnecessary, duplicative, unhelpful, doesn't really get the job done. The problem, Tamara, is fundamentally not between regulation and no regulation. It's between whether or not the regulations will be done by government using the force of sticking a gun and putting you in jail if you don't do what they tell you, or letting the market regulate. When you go down to a shopping mall and you go from store to store, that's not an unregulated event. there is the pressure of other sellers that can help keep bad transactions from occurring. So when the market regulates, it's even better than when government does it, because when government bureaucrats do it, they can be bribed, they can be incompetent, and yet when they say do it this way, even if that's the wrong way, we all suffer from it.
And we can be fined and even imprisoned if we disagree.
That's right.
And it was alarming to me to find out, first off, we have 438 now. There was 435 when we first learned this. 438 regulatory agencies or commissions on the Federal Registry.
Yep.
We only have 435 members in the House.
And there's something on the order of 16 regulations issued each year for every law that's passed by the Congress. And we're supposed to be a nation of laws, not of men. And yet these faceless bureaucrats are issuing these edicts, and most people don't even know about it. And so if you're a business person, the first you might know that there's some new regulation is when some regulator shows up and wants to fine you or give you grief about what you've been doing that you didn't even know was wrong, quote unquote,
right.
Wrong, because it's probably not wrong to do what they want.
Right.
I remember, for example, when my dad was a postmaster and they had their yearly inspection, he got written up because he didn't have red rectangles behind the fire extinguishers on the wall so that it would be immediately obvious if it wasn't there. Well, now, have you ever seen a red fire extinguisher against a white wall? Wouldn't you notice if it wasn't there? And they had an area which was a smoking area back in one corner. This is before you had to go outside.
Right.
And on one side it said smoking area, and you were supposed to have no smoking on the other side of the line. And so they wrote him up for that. This is how ludicrous some of these rules and regulations are. But having been an inspector general in the military for many years, I understand that if you go out and inspect somebody and you don't find something wrong, you get in trouble because they think you are not doing your job. And so these people who come out to inspect, they're looking to find something, and they will continue to look until they find something, because that's how they show that they did their job. For example, we were taught that if all else failed, you would check the tire pressure in the spare tire of the Jeeps.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Because most people don't think to air up the spares when they air up the 4 tires before the inspectors come.
Okay. This is killing business, because what you're talking about, these inspections, your small business owners across America, whether it's a health inspection, whether it's a business permit, they want to add on. There's nothing squelching business in America more than government.
And it is particularly onerous on smaller businesses because, large business, GMs, GEs of the world, they've got legions of lawyers and accountants and compliance officers and so on. So when one new regulation comes out, there's somebody there that's job is to read it and figure out if it applies to them. But if you and your husband are running a small business and you're already working 16, 18 hours a day and something comes in through the mail, you don't have time to sit down and do that. You're more concerned about getting the product out, serving your customers, taking care of personnel issues, et cetera, et cetera. And so, as I said before, the first time you're likely to know that there's this new regulation that affects you is if somebody shows up to give you grief about it because you didn't do it because you didn't know you were supposed to.
You're absolutely right. We had David Barton on this show the day after the election in 2014, and he was going through some of these regulations. He said 81,000 regulations since this country was started, but many of them have taken place in the last, 3 decades, 4 decades. And he says that there's a book, Alan Dershowitz, Harvard professor, wrote a book called 3 Felonies a Day, that each of us are likely committing 3 felonies a day that we're not even aware of. And the thing that concerns me, Don, is that it gives government a way to have predatory, it's predatory revenue when they fine you for some of these things. But if you don't even know what's wrong and they continue to come after you, they decide it's arbitrary who they come after, what fine they decide to label on you, and how they allow you to pay that or not pay that. We've got to go to break. But listeners, I want you to understand this is impacting you. That $14,000 a year. Imagine what you could do with that in your own household if we could reduce government once again. Stay tuned. I'm talking with Dr. Don Racheter. You're listening with Truth for Our Time on Webcast One Live Studios and 99.3 FM.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rock Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
Thanks for staying tuned. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Truth for Our Time, 99.3 FM. You can also join us 10 a.m. Wednesdays on webcast1live.com. And I do try and put these on my website. I have to apologize. Last week was such a great show, and I was so excited about getting that on there that in my attempt to do it, I have messed something up, and I've got to go back and redo it. That doesn't surprise any of you who know me, but I've got to go back and redo it. And I was so proud of the post I had. I had embedded links. I had everything there for your convenience to some of these papers that we're discussing, and now I've got to go back and do that. And because I had gone to such work and it didn't go through, I'm a little disgusted and haven't gone back and redone it. I will tell you, the reason we were talking about doing this show on regulations for about a month, and then the Thanksgiving Day notice came out from Michael Bastash, Bastasch, I hope I'm saying his name right, the Daily Caller. He does this about every holiday, because about every holiday, this administration levels another load of undue regulations on us. And Thanksgiving Day, as you were worried about maybe taking in 2,000 calories, the next day, you were loaded down with 2,224 federal regulations that are going to be every day, every bit as heavy on you and weighty when you stumble across the wrong one, as we've been talking about, probably accidentally, and they level a fine on you or come after you or hold up your business or tell you can't open this business until you get this regulation fixed. And then that takes that inspector, who takes another 2 weeks to get there. This is why we're doing this show. There were 3,000 and some regulations last Thanksgiving, and the same author talks about those that come out on Memorial Day. They hit us on the holidays because we're not busy paying attention. They don't want us to know what they're doing, Dr. Racheter.
That's correct, Tamara.
Okay, so to the average person listening, we're talking about these regulations, and they think it doesn't impact me. It's corporations, it's small businesses, but it does.
It does in many ways. First of all, it is passed along in the prices that the corporations charge for their customers, because they don't have a cornucopia in the basement of their headquarters building to put out things, to pay for these things. So they have to pass it along. But even worse, it affects the wages that workers get paid. It affects how many people get employed, or whether people get promoted or laid off. And it also leads to lower prosperity and growth for the overall economy. So the new people coming out of our high schools and our colleges and our junior colleges seeking that first job have a harder time making it. But it can even get worse than that. Last week, your caller talked about planning committees, and bureaucrats know best. I'm reminded of what used to go on in the former Soviet Union. They had central planning from Moscow. And of course, like all good bureaucrats, they did planning such that it was convenient for them rather than for the people that they were supposedly serving. They had a quota for nail production each year. But instead of saying, well, let's have 100,000 10-penny nails and 100,000 8-penny nails and 6-penny nails and so on and so forth, they made their quota in terms of tonnage of nails. And so the factories that produced nails in the old Soviet Union put out railroad spikes, big, heavy spikes, because it got them to their quota of poundage fastest. And the people living in the apartments in Kiev and Moscow and St. Petersburg didn't have any little nails to put up their pictures on the wall of their loved ones, their grandchildren,
Right.
etc.
Right.
And we have never had central planning of that nature in this country. But if it comes to that, if these bureaucrats aren't checked now and held to account, someday we're not going to have any nails that we need in the local Walmarts.
Right. But we are seeing it. You're absolutely right on the layoffs and how many employees they can hire. I've talked to folks in other countries who say, when we want to start a business, it takes about 3 weeks. When you want to start a business in America, it's about 3 years.
Yeah.
It's killing us. The $14,000 a year, I keep coming back to that. That is a second income for most families. That would be your money that you're already earning. That wouldn't put you in a new tax hike. It's already yours. So when you hear these candidates right now here in Iowa, we have, a great opportunity to ask candidates where they're at on these issues. And you'll hear a couple of candidates, depending on the aisle you're on, they're on both sides, unfortunately, saying that they would be okay with a minimum wage increase. First off, biblically, not biblical. We have the story of the vineyard in Matthew, and the owner sets the market wage. The market sets the wage. That way you can keep up with the wage, lower it, increase it whenever necessary, and you're hiring, and you can still hire. Otherwise, we see what happens. Those firms quit hiring. We hear fast food restaurants are going to automated tellers. So you hurt yourselves with that. But think this through, folks. When they're promising you a minimum wage, it's going to increase the cost of products. It's going to increase manufacturing. It's going to cycle back with the cost of living increase. And it's not going to be anything more but your tax hike.
And it's likely to motivate businesses to substitute machinery for labor where they can. They'll put in a robot, and then somebody who had a job won't have a job anymore. Because if you are being paid $15 an hour, but you don't produce $15 worth of goods or services that can be sold to the customers to pay for your salary plus the benefits and taxes and all the other overhead that you have, the employer doesn't just have that money laying around to make up the difference. And so he has to somehow make his labor budget come out. And what they typically do is they lay people off, force the existing workers to work more nights and weekends and holidays and degrade their quality of life. And it typically is young people. It's particularly minority people. It's the people who supposedly, the liberals who are pushing these kinds of schemes, are supposedly there to help, and they're actually hurting their own constituencies. Well, why do they do it? Well, because when the bottom of the wage scale goes up, the top of the wage scale goes up as well. And who's at the top of the wage scale? Unionized workers who contribute to the Democratic Party.
Well, thank you, Dr. Racheter, bringing that right back around to us. So what other ways is it hurting us every day?
Lack of choice. Lack of job opportunities, lack of growth in our economy, which, by the way, when the economy grows as it did under Reagan when he cut taxes, as it did under Kennedy when he cut taxes, more revenue actually comes into the government, which is then available for programs to protect our country, to help the less fortunate, et cetera. So, again, they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're very short-sighted. They don't understand basic economics. They don't understand supply and demand. They don't understand that when you artificially jack up the cost of labor, you're going to get less labor. It's just like when you tax something, you get less of it. When you subsidize it, you get more of it. That's why we've got so many people who are laying around not working, because we subsidize idleness in our country. Why don't we have the government be employer of last resort instead of the provider of welfare? Why don't we ask those people to do something for our society? We have all these unmet social needs if you read the liberal press. And you don't need a college degree to go out and pick up trash in the parks, get rid of graffiti, help people who are shut-ins to do their grocery shopping or change their storm windows or shovel their snow. There's all sorts of things, if we're clever about it, that we could do to put these people to work gainfully so they have some pride and some accomplishment and they're not being paid to do nothing and losing the dignity of work. And we would be getting all of these unmet social needs met. And what we'd find is as in the 90s when we reformed welfare, about 60% of them would go back into the economy where they're perfectly capable of getting jobs. There are job notices all the time. And just by the way, one of the things we could do is we could have some of these people who are going to now be employees of the government inputting all of the job ads from every single paper in the country into a centralized database. And then the government could lend people money to move to where the jobs are if they've got the skills. One of the problems is, if you're unemployed here in Des Moines, you read the want ads in the Des Moines Register or the local shopper, but you don't go look in Tulsa, Oklahoma or Mississippi or Alaska. But there might be a job that you could get to and do if you had some help to get it, and then you could pay back the loan through withholding from your taxes.
And even better, I think we did away with some of these regulations. You brought up the college degree. I think if more people were allowed just to go out and try their dreams without this notion that somebody has to have a college degree. We have, some of the folks at the top of the computer industry who dropped out of college, by the way, to make the great millions that they're making. So I think if we just allowed people, once again, if we had an economic system that allowed people to just try their hand at the gifting, the calling, the interest where God has given them, I think we'd see a freer market, and a lot more people would have jobs rather than having to go through the government and do some of this. And I should have looked it up before we came on. I was told that these folks out west, where they got the minimum wage increase, then went to their employers and said, "Listen, I need a cut in my hours because if I keep making this amount of money, I won't get my welfare benefits."
That's right, because most of them are means tested and they're just an absolute precipice. You get to this point, you're off 100%. They don't phase it in or out because that would be too complicated for the bureaucrats to figure out how to do that. But the market could do it. And the other thing, Tamara, is that if we would quit having this one-size-fits-all notion, everybody's got to go to college. That's the only way you can have a decent life. In the Iowa City School District, we had a report from a member that happens to be a Republican who got elected finally after 3 tries. And he found out that they basically phased out their shop classes, industrial arts. And we've got a shortage in this country of welders, of electricians, of plumbers, and so on. And so if we wouldn't push everybody to go to college where they're not well suited, let them be instructed at the community colleges and the high schools in how to do these things with their hands where they can produce things, make things, repair things, a lot more people would be very happy, and they make darn good money doing it.
Exactly. And again, we have to stop with, in America, I'm telling you, we have made education our God, and we've made knowledge our idol. Our degrees our idol. And if we just come back to allowing people their giftings, their callings, where they feel best suited without this class warfare stuff that we've seen, we'd be a lot better off. You'd be able to find electricians as we're talking. But again, you get back into the regulations, Don Racheter. There's all kinds of regulations on electricians and on plumbers. And when you go to build a house, you have to have a licensed electrician. And maybe that's not the case. Maybe you know somebody who could do just a great, great job. And you know what? To assume that because somebody's licensed that it's going to be perfect, let's just take time out. Have you ever gone to a hairstylist and gotten a bad cut? They're licensed.
And if they gave you the haircut and didn't charge you for it, they could do it. I wired my own attic. It's not illegal to do your own wiring, but if you pay somebody, then they have to be licensed. So that's really what the rub is all about, is reducing competition for existing practitioners. That's what licensure is all about. It's a job protection racket. It doesn't provide any guarantee that your brain surgeon or your electrician or your hair braider knows what the heck they're doing. And if we really want to have the government involved, what they could do is certify people. You take a test, you pass, they could say you're a certified hair braider, you're a certified electrician, but don't give them a license that says you can't practice this profession unless you have this license and you have to go 2,000 hours to beauty school in order to do hair braiding. That's ridiculous. Taxi industry is a great example. Uber, Lyft, all of these competitors, the taxi industry, the monopolies that have invested in these medallions are going crazy because people are getting in their cars and giving people lifts, and they're doing it over their smartphones and stuff.
Free market.
And if you give somebody a ride, nobody cares. But if you charge them, boy, you're competing with the taxis and you're in big trouble.
And again, the free market would best we go through this with teachers. How do we know what teacher's the best teacher? Do we have merit pay? How do we handle this? Your parents know. Your students know.
Yeah.
Right away. Your market will tell you who's the best, who's the not. Your market will correct, as you're saying, when there's a problem with an issue. We're going to have to go to break. I'm watching the clock. You're listening to Dr. Dawn Racheter, Tamara Scott with Truth for Our Time on Webcast One Live and 99.3 FM. Stay tuned because it's time you take your world back, and we're going to tell you how.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money-back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
Welcome back to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And thanks for listening. I appreciate your time with us as we help you in today's world when the headlines hit home, helping you live God's Word in today's world. And my guest is Dr. Dawn Racheter with the Public Interest Institute. You can find them online at
limitedgovernment.org.
They put out policy papers monthly?
Occasionally over the course of the year. It works out to be about one a month, but they're not always regular. They're more
as
clumped.
needed. As
Yes.
needed on a variety of topics
Yes.
impacting us. Years ago, you talked about the number of state employees compared to residents that lived here, and I think it was like 16-1 at that point.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Iowa has the greatest gap between what we pay our public employees and what we pay our private employees of any state in the nation. And those are from government numbers themselves. We just take the government's numbers for what the salaries are, divide them out, and line up the 50 states in the District of Columbia. And so it's not Massachusetts, it's good old Iowa. And it has a lot to do with arbitration, going to court and us losing a court case, and the government basically forcing the taxpayers to pay more for the benefits and salaries and so on of public employees here in this state. But to come back to what those public employees are up to as far as regulatory
nice job.
burden, unfortunately, regulation is one size fits all. It's a monopoly type deal when the government does it. And to say that you either have regulation or you don't have regulation is to conflate society with government, and they're different. And in a society, you can have private sector free market regulation. So we don't have to be against regulation. We just have to be against government, arbitrary, monopoly, coercive regulation, because basically what they're saying is we're idiots that don't know how to govern ourselves. And even the government itself, the Regulatory Right to Know Act says that the Office of Management and Budget has to make recommendations for reform in the regulatory regime. And for the last 5 years in a row, they've made about 16 different recommendations, none of which, of course, has been adopted. And so we continue to have this proliferation of new regulations, manifestations of old regulations being extended into new areas, and that hurts our economy, hurts job creation, hurts everyday citizens, their choices, and it is a tremendous burden. If you would take the cost, $1.9 trillion a year of government regulation in the United States, that's like the 10th largest economy in the world. That is just on top of all of the taxation that's direct, which of course we don't feel that burden very much because they hide it in withholding in our paychecks. And of course, regulation, nobody sees the little charge on your sales slip that says, oh, in addition to the $14 you just paid for this product, $7 of the cost was increased by regulatory burden. And so it's all hidden, and that's why it's so insidious. And what we need to do is to get back to flipping the whole incentive structure. Just like with taxing and budgeting, we need to go from the incremental budgeting system we have now, where you assume they're going to get as much for their for their agency or program as they got last year, plus an increment to cover inflation, even though we haven't had any inflation in, 7 years with the Federal Reserve doing what they're doing to our money supply. But the incentive is you keep doing it. And if you or I introduced as a legislator a bill to defund some regulation or some program,
like Planned Parenthood?
Yeah. All of the incentives are to keep it going, and it's very difficult to pass something like that. But if the burden was shifted so that all programs were done away with, and they had to justify reintroducing them and reauthorizing them, it'd be very easy to stop them, because the Founding Fathers in their infinite wisdom set up a system where it's difficult to do stuff.
And you called that, is that zero-based budgeting?
Yes, and I'm going to be writing a brief coming out in the near future about that. But the same way with regulations, we need to basically just halt. No more 3,000 every Thanksgiving. And go back and look at all the old ones to see if they're still necessary or whether or not we can get rid of them. And make the incentive such that if you want to justify doing something, the burden is on you, not on us, the average citizens.
Don Racheter, Public Interest Institute, website,
limitedgovernment.org.
limitedgovernment.org. Hop on the website, browse through topics there that you can look at. If you have a question, I think you could probably call somebody there and they would be able to direct you in the right way, or maybe you'd prompt a new paper.
Right, or we can be contacted at public.interest.institute@limitedgovernment.org.
Say that again.
public.interest.institute@limitedgovernment.org. Very long name. We tried to get limited government shortened to LG, but somebody in China has got the thing on that and wouldn't give it up to us.
Okay. Limitedgovernment.org is the website. Dr. Don Racheter, thank you for coming in today.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for what you do, including mentoring me so many years ago when I ran. And you're always there, always able to help us with more information. And you are located on the eastern side of the state. We sometimes refer to that as the liberal side of the state. But I'm telling you, the people I met there who get it, they get it. Those Republicans can tell you what they believe, why they believe, and be ready to defend it.
Well, we're under siege. We have to fight hard.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Well, all right. So as you're seeing these candidates parade through the state of Iowa, and we are so blessed to have that opportunity here in Iowa, and I know you take it seriously. I'm so proud of Iowans. We do take it very seriously. When the rest of America's at the beaches or on the golf course, we're in town halls 3 years, getting to know the candidates, asking them the tough questions. But I'm telling you, here's your chance. As Don said, not what they're going to do, not what they're going to increase on the budget, but let's start from scratch. Let's do away with some of these regulations. Let's do away with some of these budget issues. And let's start from scratch on some of these. We were talking about me running for office earlier, and I think if I were going to run again, it wouldn't be what I was going to do. It would be what I was going to undo. Some of those regulations, some of those issues that I would undo. It is predatory government, at the very least, when they can nail you for anything in a traffic stop because they can find something that you're not even aware of that you may have done improperly. And when we talk also about your business, I'm telling you from a personal experience, talking to small business owners, it is killing the free market. What they can and cannot do, what they're allowed to do, the time it takes, the cost that they have to just to fulfill these regulations, because as Don says, from the top down, somebody's decided what we need, and top-down regulation from government comes, out of D.C. They're going to know best what they need in Wyoming, what they need in Hawaii, what they need in Florida or Iowa. We know what we need best at the time, at the season. Climate, different seasons of business climates, different weather climates. We know what we need best. Our founders knew it. The best government is that which is the least government, but closest to the people. So we will continue this discussion on in the next weeks to come. Bill Northey's coming on at some point. We can get the schedule rearranged. We're talking about some things happening here in Iowa on regulation. But as I told you, it's Christmas, and it just bothers me not to be able to talk about Christmas in the months of December. I can talk about Christmas in June and July. I play music in July and August. I hold off usually till August, and I let it all out in September. It's anybody's game in September. Christmas music happens at my house. So, but joining me now is a friend and a photographer by the name of Dave Davidson, and I'm going to put this up. Brian, I don't know if you can get a good screenshot of that or not. That's one of the photos he took this year. That's one of my wonderful sets of children, and my son and his wife. And then here's another one that came out, my son and his wife. And I don't have my daughters and hers yet, but they used the photos that you were so kind to take with us one afternoon in October. And I think it took us less than 20 minutes.
It was a quick one, but we'd already had a family shoot with your extended family, so they kind of knew how to work out with me. I'm sitting here seeing this picture. I'm thinking, those people look familiar.
Yeah.
Gee, no wonder.
Yeah. We know the drill. We know the Davidson drill.
Yeah. A family shoot is a fun time.
And so if people need photos taken, are you available?
Yes. My website, Picture Perfect You, Y-O-U, you can find me there. Plenty of samples of my work, and my phone number's there. You can just text me. So
we've got to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the other reason I invited Dave Davidson. He's the author of many, many books, and we're going to talk about the fragrance of Christmas. Stay tuned. Tamara Scott, Truth for Our Time, 99.3 FM, and Webcast One Live Studio.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com. and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
Jason, right. This is Tamara Scott. Thank you for staying tuned. You are listening to Truth for Our Time on 99.3 FM and Webcast One Live Studio. And this is one of the fun parts. I love what I get to do. The studio is just so fun to get to be. I'm honored to be part of the 99.3 FM family and the Webcast One Live Studios, but I get to do what I want to do every day. I ask people questions. I find areas of interest. Christmas, I love. And
Christmas is good. I'm just saying.
And Dave Davidson is in studio. Dave Davidson also appreciates the Christ that came on Christmas. But this little book that I'm holding in my hand, The Fragrance of Christmas. Okay, first off, look at the size. It's easy. You can keep it in your pocket. You can read it when you're on the bus, when you're sitting waiting for an appointment. It's just a quick little read that will brighten and lighten your day.
And usually you have an author plugging something new. You've just had that. You must like it, because I was looking through the copyright. We did 3 or 4 titles with this publisher. I'll hold them up here. A couple of Devotion with God, Fragrance of Christmas, and then A Fragrance of Love. And they had potpourri series, okay? And these were published in 1998, the last millennium. So you're a good fan. So what I did, Tamara, is the main message of Christmas, The Fragrance of Christmas, was about the Christmas spirit. So I took basically the excerpt from that, and it's an acronym for the word Christmas, and made that available for free on the interwebs, okay, for your listeners to have, for you, in essence, to give them a Christmas card. You just showed Christmas cards of your family. And so we were just talking throughout the break here, and we're going to add your picture of your family a little forward, and then at the website, Give Books Away, which is just a landing page for this title. It's an adaptation of that book. The Secrets of the Christmas Spirit will be a PDF book that people can take and give away. And it's a Christmas season, as indicated by Don's red sweater, who was just in here. I just wanted to give him a big Santa Claus head. I think his beard's going to grow in the next few weeks. I think that was a Santa Claus, but I could be wrong.
So, well, he's going to save us all a lot of money, which is a big gift, right?
If
we'd listen to him,
government.
if we'd take on the limited government. Yeah, and we are going to continue that discussion, because we got to tackle it. You got to start somewhere.
Santa can't be regulated like that.
So how will people find this book?
If you go to givebooksaway.com, you will see this title. And what we're going to add today is a forward by you and your picture. So it's kind of like your Christmas card. You see sometimes a longer Christmas card. Well, this is like a digital. It's an electron, okay? And so we're going to put your picture on there. And so it's a way to have ownership in a book and give it out. Now, you've seen all these links. It's kind of getting to be a free world sometimes. There's free this, free that. But what I want to challenge your watchers and viewers, audience, and listeners is that they can take ownership in this. I'll tell you what, I'll open it up to them. If they want to put their own forward, they can contact me. Dave at davedavidson.com.
Don't be stealing my idea, folks. No.
But Tamara's the first. We're going to try this. The point is, even no matter whose forward is written, is that they can take this, and at that website, they can tweet it out and say, hey, I just got this book for free. It's already pre-written, okay? I like to have tweets that I like that are pre-written. Facebook, you can even drop a tip, but it is free. And so it's the difference between free and then I'll say, hey, this is a great message. Let's talk about the message of the book.
Yeah.
years ago, I thought, with my brother Dan, we write books together. We thought, well, what really makes a Christmas spirit? I'll ask you, Tamara, what are some things like, maybe you got early Christmas spirit, you listen to Jingle Bells and stuff in August, but what are some things that help you start to feel like those tingly feelings?
Right. I think it's, okay,
What's
first
a trigger
off,
for you?
we have to be careful here because you always hear people say the holidays are about family and tradition. Okay, no, they're not. All right? The holidays for me, Christmas, is about Jesus Christ, who was in heaven, in paradise, left paradise to come to earth as a human being, knowing what was ahead of him, so that he could die for our sins, and through us asking for his forgiveness as that perfect gift, we then can go back to heaven with him. He came down here to get us so we could go with him to heaven. That's what Christmas is about. That's what Christmas is about. Now, what do I love when I celebrate Christmas? My family. The spirit that people have, even those who may not believe in Christmas as I do. If you go to the store and you have car trouble in Christmas, somebody's going to help you. July 4th, they're buying their beer and they're out for the fireworks. The spirit of Christmas takes us all. For some, it's secular. I hear parents threaten their kids in the store. You better be careful, Santa's watching. And I think, oh, what a lousy idea that is. But we're all a little bit better behaved. Mm-hmm. We joke about the coal in the stocking. We joke about the heartfelt memories.
And there's everything you're saying, there's a reason for that. You led with Christ, which I agree with. Your theology, as far as I'm concerned, is spot on. And people are at different spots of that thing. You just mentioned the story, Santa this, and then the family and the traditions, that's part of the recipe. So we made an acronym for the word Christmas. And I'll just say the ending of the story right now, that the last S is S for Savior. But for the Christmas spirit, the secret of the Christmas spirit really is about Christ. But the things that lead up to it are things that help us become aware, and that the Holy Spirit is really the Christmas spirit. The Holy Spirit is always trying to catch our attention. And these traditions and things that happen each year are ways that the Holy Spirit catches our attention. So you mentioned family. Well, in CHR, R for relationships, okay? Tradition is T for tradition in the acronym. So M is for music, for example. You're listening to music. And so these things that happen each year kind of open up our heart. And what happens is we get time off work. We've just given to each other and interact. We've probably squabbled a little bit, right? But finally our hearts rest. Maybe it's Christmas Eve or the night of Christmas. And we realize all the thankfulness we should have for our family, and it hits us. We're blessed. The Holy Spirit finally can connect to our hearts. I think you, Tamara, since you're a godly young woman, the Holy Spirit hits you with the Christmas spirit early because you're open to it. Okay, that's just my theory. That is the secret of the Christmas spirit. The Christmas spirit is about the Holy Spirit, always trying to remind us who Christ is in our lives and who he should be.
So how can they get this book?
GiveBooksAway.com is pointed right now at this free book, The Secrets of the Christmas Spirit, which is an excerpt from this old book that was printed in 1998 that looks like there was 5 printings for. And that's our message, is the Christmas spirit is part of a recipe for God catching your attention with the Holy Spirit at Christmas time.
Dave Davidson, thank you for what you do.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
I know you are constantly working. Your mind never goes to rest, even when you're sleeping. I'm sure that there are things popping around in there. And
were you in my dreams? What the heck? How did you know that?
I'm eavesdropping on your dreams. And now to offer this to our listeners out there, we appreciate you. We love what you do. And if we can encourage you just a little bit, a little nugget over hot spice tea, if you can just read this and just be encouraged, we would love to do that.
They can give it away too. I mean, they'll receive it from you. Okay. It's a present from this station from you is kind of what we're trying to set up. And then they can give it back out through just posting it on Facebook or Twitter. You'll be prompted to. It just takes this moment to give it away.
And as we start preparing our hearts and our homes for Christmas, that's the only way we'll have an enjoyable Christmas. You won't have peace on Christmas Eve if you're not working towards it the other 364 days a year. But we're grateful to be able to offer this to you at Giveaway Books, GiveBooksAway.com, GiveBooksAway.com, Secrets of the Christmas Spirit. I hope your family has a blessed Christmas as we come into 2 more weeks yet into Christmas. We're still moving on it, but be encouraged and never be complacent.